do more public speaking and stuff like this. So yeah, pretty cool.
Thanks, Martae. That is a super fun fact. I don't know nobody else that is training to be a pro wrestler. So that is very unique, and nobody is ever going to forget that. So that's super dope. Next, we have Chirs Hullaby, who is also class 5. He currently works as a site coordinator at the University of Kansas. Chirs served with us back in 2019 to 2020. He served for 1 year. And then he went on to do some great things in Kansas City. So Chirs, let us know more about you, and let us know a fun fact as well.
Hey everybody. My name is Chirs. I'm a site coordinator for KU Gear Up at Washington High School. And I guess this can be a fun fact as well. Washington is actually the school that I graduated from. And in 2014, I had to think about it for a second because it's kind of, time is going by so fast. It's kind of been a little while, but how I got the site coordinator position was actually, honestly, I think through connections. Before I was a site coordinator, I worked with the Kansas State Advising Corps with Maya. Actually, Maya was there. She's also one of the panelists. She was with the College Advising Corps when I was working there. But the work that I did with CAC in Washington gave me exposure, and then other people were willing to, let me know certain opportunities that were available for me. So, and I just took advantage of it. So that's a little bit of me, and I'll share more as this goes on.
That's cool. I actually didn't know that about how you kind of got connected. I didn't know that. That's what's up. And then there's Jayla, who's from a Wash House, and she's representing in the chat. So that's what's up. Next, we have Alexandra Shaw. You could also call her Alex, but I love the name Alexandra. I think it's just so eloquent. But she's class 3, and she just got a new job at a local company called Home Base as their education and training coordinator. And Alex has also been serving currently on the council in her 2nd year. So let us know all about you, Alex. A fun fact or how you recently got your new job is cool too.
Yeah, so a fun fact would be I'm also a Washington High School graduate, 2012. So we are representing tonight. But with that being said, so I recently just ended my tenure with Johnson County. I was there for I was there for 3 years. So I did kind of a complete shakeup of my career. And it was kind of scary, but it was also a really good jump for me. So now I'm with a startup company called Homebase, and they're about 5 years old. So they're really still a startup. And I basically found this role through just job searching, specifically through Indeed. And then they reached back out to me, and then the process went however it went.
That's really cool. And shout out to you. That's pretty brave anytime you make a transition or a pivot from what you've always known. So shout out to you. And last but not least, we have Maya Tilmon, who is a class 3, and she currently works as a persistence specialist at Avila University, and she served with the council for 2 years from 2018 to 2020. So Maya, let us know a little bit about you, fun fact, or you can let us know how you landed at Avila University.
Yeah, hi everybody. Like Chirs said, was working with the K-State College Advising Corps, and then before that, I was working at K-State in the admissions office as a recruiter. So just being K-State all the way. So when I was looking for jobs, I found this job at Avila, and I'm like, okay, that looks like what I'm interested in, because I wanted to stay in the higher education realm, and I wanted to do something that was more success related and making sure students are staying in school and graduating and all those great things. So just regular things, looking on LinkedIn, looking on Indeed. But in my interview, the woman that's my supervisor now, she went to K-State, And she used to work in admissions at K-State too. And it came up in the interview. So she was like, oh my God, when I saw that on your resume, I just thought that was so great. And we just had to interview you. And I was like, oh yeah, this is in the bag. Like, we already knew that. So I think just kind of having that, I had never met her before, nothing like that. But I think just it being that connection of like us going to the same school and having that same job right out of college was just like something that she thought was special. And she knew what sort of skills and things I had to do with that position and that I could be capable of doing this job. And yeah, I don't really have like a fun fact, not a lot of fun things going on right now. I am going to it's like a throwback music festival this weekend out at the Monarch Stadium at the Legends. It's going to be like Ludacris and like Twista and Petey Pablo, like a very like early 2000s throwback thing. So let's say that's a fun fact to be outside this weekend.
What have I been living under a rock? I didn't know that was a thing. I gotta look into that. I don't know if there's tickets still left or not, but I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah, Maya is always doing something. But that's what's up. And that's kind of crazy. And I think we'll speak to this later about like just connections in general. And how it makes life a little bit easier. So that's good. And I'm so happy to hear about how that worked in your favor, Maya. So that's what's up. And I know K-Staters, they ride or die. So I get it. Okay, so we're gonna move into kind of like just the questioning part of the panel. And so the first question that I wanted to prompt to the panelists tonight to set the tone is kind of to define leadership. If you could say what leadership means, what would that be? And I'll start off with Chris first. Let us know what leadership means to you.
Yeah, so I think leadership is having the ability to encourage and inspire action amongst a group of people. So in other words, really just being that person who leads by example. And I think an important part of that is leading by example in a positive way. You can be a leader and be a little harsh at times. We may have all had that one boss or one person who was put in charge of a group that was just pretty hard to respect and follow. So yeah, I just think it's, having the ability to encourage and inspire action in a positive way.
I feel that. I think we've all been there, but I feel that. What about you, Alex? What does leadership mean to you?
I really like the points that Chris made, and just to piggyback off that, I think a leader is someone who provides that mentorship to then support the efforts of others. So by the time you're in a leadership position or you're trying to show leadership in your job, you're using the skills that you now have in your toolbox to then mentor other people to then reach for the stars just like you have, or to learn things just like you have. So then they can also start showing those qualities as well. And just like Chris said, I mean, the biggest part is also being that positive leader. So, we don't want toxic leaders. One of the things that I like to think about is that leaders now pivot into, that facilitator, that mentorship role, because they're building up not only, themselves, but now they're building up the people around them and supporting them in those efforts.
I like that a lot. It makes me think of like big companies and how, they undergo like so many different cultural shifts based on the leader who sets the tone there, whoever sits in that executive seat. So I really like that. What about you, Maya? What does leadership mean to you?
Leadership to me is really being like self-aware and just knowing like kind of, or just having a good grasp on like who you are as a person, like what's your learning style, what's your listening style, like what are your, I don't know if your love languages, as they kind of flow into that, like you just being self-aware, just knowing what kind of person you are, and really just kind of being confident in whatever it is that you're doing, because the more confident and like aware that you are of yourself and like what you have going on, the more likely people are going to be responsive to that and really feel like, oh, okay, like this person seems like they know what they're doing, like I'm gonna be more likely to listen and be open to feedback or criticism or just any sort of things going on with that person. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I think about like when you said like the self-aware, just knowing who you are, it also kind of lets you know when someone's self-aware what they're not. So then you don't feel like you got to do everything because you know you can't, you know you may not be good at X, Y, and Z. And so then you know how to like put somebody on your team that complements that, if that makes sense. So that's a really good one too. What about you, Martae? What does leadership mean to you?
I kind of jotted down something like similar to what Maya was talking about. So kind of adaptability and kind of being able to know who you're working with and kind of what the end goal is. Because I mean, we're all kind of different. We all work in different ways. So just knowing who you are and who you're working with and kind of the goal that's at the end of the tunnel, I guess. You just kind of understand what you need to do and how to effectively do that. I think that's what a leader is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because if you don't know where you're going, you're gonna be stuck. You're not gonna go anywhere. That's for sure. So I feel like all of you said a little bit of different things. So do you feel like leadership is a one size fit all? So you think it's just one way to be a leader? And if you feel like there is just that one way, then what way would that be? What do you think, Alex?
Kind of just to what Maya, Martae, and kind of what we've been talking about is that there isn't a one size fits all, but there are definitely, qualities that are a requirement as the base of someone's leadership. So like, I really liked what Maya said of like knowing yourself. That's a base that's really important. I think Chris touched on, having direction. Martae touched on that. And that's really important as a leader of, just like we were talking about, if you're going to be positive, if you're going to mentor people, if you're going to support people, what's the direction of that? And do you have a clear picture? Because if not, then you're not going to mentor them in a way that benefits your business, that benefits your path, or that even benefits, themselves. So I would say like, definitely not a one size fits all, but there has to be qualities that provide a base for how you should be effective as a leader.
That's a good answer. Does anybody else have anything to chime in on that? That was really good. Dang, Alex. Okay. That was really good though. I love the way you have framed that. Like, no, it's not a one size fits all, but whatever you're doing, it has to provide a good foundation for your team. So that's important. Okay. Well, we'll move into kind of the next thing. And I think that's everything that you all said kind of touches on this, but maybe you can get a little bit more specific. So when you talk about even though if it's not a one size fits all and, everybody's not going to do it the same, what are some key skills? And these can be tangible things like whether that's being the strategic thinker, or these can be intangible, like the culture that you create, whatever that looks like. But what are some things that you all think skills that leaders must, but what do you have to possess in order to do that? And I'll call on Maya first this
time. I would definitely say being organized. If you're leading a team, just really being able to know like everyone's strengths, how they were mentioning before, just knowing people's strengths, like knowing kind of like how to delegate, like, okay, I'm not good at this, but I know you're good at that, so you can do that, and just kind of being organized that way, but then also just organized on like a project management side of things. Because I mean, no matter what type of job you end up having, like you're probably going to be doing some sort of project management. So really being able to say like, this is what I'm doing, this is when it needs to be done. I know the timeline, I know each little step within the bigger steps that are being taken. So really just I think being organized is a really big skill that I think a leader would possess for leading any sort of team anywhere.
Very true. Because if the leader's chaotic, then everybody else is going to be chaotic. So that makes sense. What do you think, Chris? Anything to add on to being organized?
Yeah, being organized is a big one. And if I can add anything else on there, I'll say being decisive. Just not being afraid to make decisions. Taking that risk. Be like, okay, I think this is what we're doing, and we're gonna go with this. Unapologetically. And I just feel like that. I feel like that is important because it just shows that you're confident in what you're doing. And you don't want to be like arrogant with it. Like, okay, like I'm not going to consider how anybody else is feeling, but I feel like ultimately the leader has to know how to make the best decision. And then along with that, I feel like a leader need communication and being able to mediate conflict within a group. I feel like leaders should have those skills as well, because whenever you're dealing with a team of people, it's inevitable that there might be some conflict, especially if strong personalities are in there. So I feel like that's also an important leadership skill to have.
Those are some good ones. If you could have heard me up here, I'm over here like, yeah. Those are really good ones. Yes, and Aaron touched on, I think, what those two things go to, and that's communication. Diligent communication is important. And when you talked about being like, I think each one you said too, Chris, were very hard. Like, it's hard to be decisive and stand on your decisions that you make, because it's always going to be a consequence, whether that consequence is good or whether it's bad. And to stand on that can be really hard. But I think what you're speaking to is leaders have to do that, and you have to step into that. And that is what can make a good leader, as well as being able to mitigate conflict. That's hard. That ain't easy. And I think that's why you see that there are very few good leaders sometimes, because the things that it takes to step into that type of role are very hard. Those are some good ones. Does anybody else have anything to add? Martae, Alex? And if you all have something to add too, please drop it in the chat. I know Aaron dropped something in that said communication. So please feel free to drop anything in the chat. But Alex, Martae, did you have anything else to add?
I can go ahead and add something. I mean, kind of going on what they said. I mean, like an idea of humility, kind of humbleness too with it, is something that's definitely needed for a leader, because you don't want to have your ideas shot down or even denied for reasons out of your control, and kind of lose yourself or lose control. So it's kind of definitely that idea also of trust. So you got to be trusting, and you have to be trustworthy. So in terms of like delegation, things like that, like you're not going to be able to do every task. You're not going to be able to put your finger in every, I don't know an idiom for it, but you know what I mean. You can't do everything. So kind of having people that you can rely on to do that, and people that trust you in order to do tasks that they need you to do. It's kind of a two-way street.
Just to piggyback off of that, Martae, just like what everyone kind of said, I mean, and Aaron, I really like your comment of being transparent. And I think that it boggles down to just being human and just owning the fact that you are human. And, I think that for a while we've learned that like to be a leader means like you're like a superhero, but we are changing that. And that's a really great thing that's happening, because you're not all by yourself as a leader. And that is something that leaders have to understand, is that if you do have a bad consequence, does that mean it's the end of the world? No. So if you provide turn grace to your team, then you have to provide that to yourself. And I think, again, Martae, you were talking about that trusting part. If you trust your team to tell you like, hey, I'm not going to meet this deadline, they're going to trust you to tell them, hey, actually, I can't do this. And, I need some help figuring out either, to move the project some other way. So.
Y'all going to church. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm over here. And all of those things are way harder. I mean, way easier said than done, of course. But I think that is all encompassing of, some really great qualities that we see leaders that we think are good leaders possess. And that, I think, brings me to my next question of like, who are some leaders that you all look up to? like that you'd be like, dang, that's a really great leader. And this can be someone very close to you, friend, foe, family member, or it can be someone that, you know, may not be in your direct network, you know, someone that you see just as an influence in, you know, broader communities. But I would love to hear who are some people that you think are just like really great leaders. And Alex, I would love to hear from you first.
So the person who comes to mind, and this is because with my job change, I've been really reading stuff from her and like trying to think of like, how do I create my own style of leadership? And it's Renee Brown. And so she actually has a book about that, about, you know, what leaders do and, you know, what does leadership look like? And a lot of it is her talking about failure as a leader and how do we process that and how do we make space to be leaders and still be courageous and fearless, but also own the fact that we're human. And I just really love that because that's not something we have always been taught. Like we've always been taught, like, you're like the lion of the group, you're going to take charge and you're going to tell people what to do. And, you know, that's not always leadership. You know, that's sometimes toxic leadership. So Brene Brown really hits it on the mark for me currently.
Love that. Miss T, and I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with her, Tanisha Ford. She's our executive director here at Kauffman Scholars. She is definitely somebody that I feel like exemplifies some, if not all of those qualities that you all were talking about. And in fact, she introduced one of Renee Brown's books to us as a team. So I think that's really cool. That, and when you talked earlier too, Alex, about how like leaders mentor other people, so they're not just worried about like how are they leading, they're worried about, okay, how can I get my team to become leaders, or how do I help them step into their leadership too? I think that's really important. So that's a great person. And Aaron, let me do some more research because I already forgot about it, but I'll drop it in the chat. And if anyone else has, you know, leaders that you look up to or that you know about and heard about, please drop them in the chat as well. But Martae, I would love to know about a leader or two that you also look up to.
I'm taking it back to high school here for a second. I remember I had JLTC teachers, I think First Sergeant Brown, last name Brown. He was, I don't know, I liked his charismatic style of kind of leadership. He was very outgoing and very friendly with a lot of people, and he also kind of kept everything professional and to a T too. I feel like he had a great balance of kind of letting us make our own mistakes, but also being there to help us out. And I feel like a leader has to be able to balance with everyone.
I know exactly who you're talking about. What about you, Chris and Maya? Are there any leaders or folks that you all like look up to or who inspire you based on the characteristics that they kind of like display?
Maya, you wanna go first? Oh, by the way, Alexandria, I'm also reading Dare to Lead. Now the only thing is I did start it a while ago, but now that you say that, I need to go ahead and finish it. There's been so many books on my list that I need to either read or finish reading, but I am getting better at my reading. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and say off the top of my head is my old K-State director, Megan Higgins. She, I feel like, possessed a lot of good leadership skills, leadership qualities. Just her style was, she was gonna hear everybody out. They like how they seen things, how they wanted them to go in their schools that we were in. And again, it was college advising, so everybody was split up in different schools, and she had to be open-minded because she understood that not all schools look, the same or have the same structure. So it was very important. Well, one thing I really appreciated was her ability to, hear people out. And man, she was just awesome. She was just had this super, chill personality. And even was very supportive of the things that I had going on outside of college advising. Like she honestly assisted me with one of my internships that I have currently, with a Sterling Sport Mindset, because I'm interested in sports psychology. And when I let her know that, she was like, oh, I know a friend that's doing this and doing this. Like she can really help you out. So things, little things like that went a long way for me. And which is why she's one of the my favorite leaders that I've been up under so far. And I was trying to give Maya the opportunity to go first. I'm not sure if she was going to say Megan as well or somebody else. I don't know. But yeah, that's mine.
That's a good one. And she used to work at KSI too.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so that's a big shout out. Maya, is there anybody else that you look up to or who inspires you as a leader?
Yeah, I definitely was gonna say Megan. And then my boss that I had before Megan, it's funny because like her leadership style, like I don't know, just was very like strict and like structured. She's like, okay, like you know what you're doing. I've delegated this task to you. Okay, now get it done. Okay, you ran into a problem. All right, let's problem solve and let's figure it out. Like, so she was just very like, I don't know, just like cool and calm. Like if anything was going wrong, she's like, okay, hold on for a second. We're gonna figure it out. Like just calm down. So I just really appreciated that. She was kind of scary, just a little bit, but her leadership style, it worked because it was like, okay, I'm kind of scared, but I know I can come to you if something is going on and we need to problem solve and like figure something out. Like I know you're serious because we're at work, but like outside of work, like she was very much like a nice lady. But it just was something that I was like, okay, like you just know have to be like professional, but then also just knowing like I can still come to you if something is going on or if I just need to talk about anything that's going on outside of work or just within the work team.
That's what's up. And sometimes the scary ones be the best ones. I've had a few people in my life who I felt like were extremely intimidating, but would go to bat for me. You know what I mean? And I've learned so much from them because I feel like I'm opposite from that. But I learned so much how to step more into that, just being able to be confident, so to speak. So I think you learn a lot from them. So that's good. And then Alex dropped a gem in the chat about a book, and then in like a follow-up email that I'll send to everybody, I'll be sure to put that in there, and then I'll link it if I can find it like on Google or Amazon if you all want to go ahead and buy that book. And then Erin said her previous boss used to always say that everything is fixable, and Ashley Marie highlighted that by saying she likes that quote, and I do too, because everything is fixable. It's not the end of the world, and it takes a leader to really shift that perspective for their team. Thank you. Yeah, Alex. She also said, I love knowing that that's an experience. Yes, they are the best leaders. Okay, so we're gonna move into kind of like our next big question of the evening, and that's how do you develop leadership skills? So we talked about basically the result, like all these skills that we say are things that we've seen. How do you develop those though? So we see that good leaders are self-aware. We see that good leaders are organized. We see that good leaders are decisive. But all of those skills take practice into forming that habit, unless it's natural to you. But not all of those skills are natural. So how do you develop leadership skills? And we can just kind of open that up right off the bat. Martae, what do you think? How do you develop those type of skills?
Okay. Kind of developing leadership, it takes practice. I mean, gosh, trying to think, it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, it takes some time to really kind of just think about what you want and how you want to lead and how you work. So kind of self-understanding, self-awareness, and also kind of taking chances. Like I think Chris said it, like taking risk taking, kind of going in and kind of being able to say, I'm going to put myself in this situation I'm not comfortable in and make the most out of it. Sometimes it takes that.
I love that. And again, that's one of them things that's way easier said than done. But once you do it, I think it makes the next time easier. Chris, what do you think? How do you develop leadership skills?
Yeah, like Martae said, and I think Maya said earlier, just that self-awareness and working on yourself every day, focusing on that self-improvement, because that right there can honestly make people gravitate towards you. If you have a good sense of who you are as a person, people are just going to naturally gravitate towards you. So I feel like just being more self-aware, and I really don't know the details of getting like how to become more self-aware. But like Martae said, it's not gonna happen overnight. You just got to focus on what areas you can get better at in your life and just work on improving them every day. And I feel like doing that will inevitably help you develop self-awareness. And obviously there's books out there you can read and study and naturally feed your mind with all this positive leadership strategies, and listening and reading other leaders' perspectives, I think could help you develop some skills and learn some new stuff. So that's all I got.
Yeah, but that's what y'all saying is really important. So it basically sounds like it starts with self. And what's weird about that though is like somebody tell you like work on yourself, and you like, what does that look like? And you just have to start. And so sometimes that is just picking an area. But what's also cool about living in the 21st century, like people come up with whatever. So there's so many different assessment tests, that you can take. Like there's the Myers-Briggs, there's Enneagrams, which is you can find out if you have a number. There's astrology. There's all these different places that you can start, or you can, also start like with just reflective inventory of like, what did my last week look like or whatever. So, but I love that that's where you all are starting with how you develop it. It starts with self. Alex, Maya, do you have anything else to add to, starting with self as far as developing leadership skills?
Yeah, I would say I would add like really kind of like taking the initiative and putting yourself out there. So like Martae was saying, like it really just takes practice and just kind of experience. Like you don't really know what kind of leader you are until you're put into like a leadership sort of situation. So where you have to lead a team or make a decision on something. So really just kind of like whether you're just put into that situation or if you can take the initiative and say like, hey, like, can I be placed in a situation where I'm taking charge of something? Really just kind of like stepping out your comfort zone and just going for it and just seeing what happens. And that's how you develop leadership skills. You just go for it and see how it goes, how it works, and it's kind of trial and error.
I would so agree with that too, because I think like one of the biggest things that I've learned is that you have to go through the depths of the fiery pits to even, start building up that awareness of what leadership is and what's good and what's like not good. I think, Chris, you talked about, those books and, people will say, once you get into like leadership positions, you're like, oh, I read this book and I read this book. But that was with the context of like, I've been through all these experiences. I've done trial and error. So yeah, I chose this book, but I chose this book under the understanding of like, yeah, that's my leadership style and that's where I want to go. And, one of the things that I tell people is that, it's going to hurt and it's going to be okay that it hurts. Like there's going to be times where people shoot you down and it's going to be because you realize, oh, I didn't really frame that idea correctly, or I didn't do this in a way that I wanted to, present myself. And that's going to be your trial and error. And you're going to also see people who you love their style, but maybe it's not for you, and that's okay as well. but you're gonna learn through experience and through self-awareness, which I think, just like everyone has said, like that's really the base of knowing who you are and then going through that.
Love that. Love everything y'all said. Ashley Marie dropped a link to Crystal Knows, which is another like self-assessment. You can use it for your personal or professional use. We've used it here at the job. So when we talk about like leaders and how it's really like a domino effect, whatever the leader's doing, it disperses in the team, which is why you have some like really great cultures and some toxic cultures. So I think one of the things that Miss T and our leadership team works really hard to do is try to create a culture of transparency and a culture that develops each individual. So for us, if someone comes across a really cool assessment about how to become more self-aware, they share it. So we've done Crystal Knows, again, we've done Myers-Briggs, and we've done Enneagram. So that's just one of them. And I can link those different type of assessments in the recap email as well. So this is a lot of good gems and resources that are coming out, and I'll be sure if I can capture them all in a recap email so that y'all can use for your reference. So thank you so much. One of the things that I put in the chat was literally like a phoenix. Like when Alex was talking about sometimes you got to be burned to the ground to come back up. That's like the definition of a phoenix. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us in life. We just do it over and over. Something terrible happens or whatever. And, we burn down just to be built back up. And that's unfortunate that that's the way the game of life is, but that's kind of how it goes. And you have to know how to play the game in order to win it. So, and Maya just dropped another one. There's also a colors personality test. So crazy, but you can figure out who you are through so many different ways. So be sure to tap into that. We are not going to do the kind of breakout sessions. We're just going to keep it going with the conversation here. But I will be sure to link everybody's like email and stuff, the panelists. So if you want to connect with them personally, feel free to reach out to them when this is over. But as we kind of go into the next question, I wanted to piggyback off of what Maya was talking about, which is trying things or putting yourself in leadership positions. And so I wanted to know, have any of you been involved in some type of leadership position, whether that's the council or outside the council, whether that was in college, high school, whatever the case may be throughout your few years on this life, because we babies, but your few years on this life, you've been involved in anything extracurricular that you feel like has really put your leadership skills to the test?
I can go ahead and start. Like throughout college, I did the Black Student Union, so we kind of just advocated for Black and minority students around campus, held events, did things like that. I served on the board and kind of did planning for the events and helped get brochures and pamphlets and flyers out and things like that. I think that helped mainly because I knew the purpose of the organization and kind of what we were going for. And another one I did is Circle K. So that was through like Kiwanis, if you ever heard of Key Club or anything like that. They're like a big group organization dedicated to like community service and things like that. And we used to have a lot of volunteer events. We go to like food pantries and make like cars for veterans and do around the McDonald House and do cool events like that. And I think that got to show me like more of my hospitable leader side, if that makes any sense. It kind of like leading through hospitality, leading through doing good things is something I feel really helped me out.
Those are great, Martae. Thanks for sharing. Alex, did you want to share anything?
Yeah, so I would say, the Alumni Leadership Council basically is one big one. I wouldn't say like I've never been told no or something or how to pivot, but there are times where you're on a board or something and you're ready to go all gung-ho and you have to pivot or you have to change your idea or you have to change an aspect of your idea, and that's okay. That doesn't mean like it's not going to come to fruition, but I think as a leader that's really important, because sometimes I think When we think about leadership, we think, oh, we can do whatever we want. We can do this, we can do that. And I can I think leaders are really good people at language, so they can persuade other people to think differently about things. But when it's a pivot, it's a pivot. And so I would say the leadership council kind of got me ready to be like, I'm going to be okay if someone tells me we need to pivot or we need to think about this differently. And I'm going to be prepared for that. So that'll be my experience.
I would agree with you too. So working at Kauffman Scholars and having, firsthand experience with the council and being on the council before, I would say that there's, a lot of different pivots that you have to take, even through the pandemic. I think that has taught a lot of people about pivoting and transition and all of that. And it takes a special kind of person and a special kind of team to make a seamless transition or make a seamless pivot. So I would agree. Chris, Maya, did you have any other organizations or things that you've been a part of that you feel like really helped initiate or help you step into more of your leadership skills?
I would say probably my first job out of college working in admissions was really kind of the first time where it was like, okay, Maya, you have to plan this event. I got to plan a whole event and people have to come and I have to logistics and where is it going to be and what time is it going to be and what kind of food are we going to have, where are we going to get the food, what's my budget, and I don't know, just all those sorts of little details was when I really felt like, okay, I am in charge of this and I want it to come out great, so I have to make sure I know all these things that are going to be put into this different activity or event that I'm hosting. So I would say definitely that first job out of college taught me a lot of different things and skills that I will remember forever as I'm going into all my other positions, and just life things as well.
Yeah, other than the leadership council, I would say my fraternity pushed me really to, take risk and step out of my comfort zone. I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi at K-State. Came out spring 18, and I was the leader of our group. Really assigned to me because I was the shortest, if anybody's familiar with that. But it all worked out, and I feel like right then and there was really my first time that I had to, lead and, giving certain instructions and learn how to coordinate events. And that was kind of amongst all of us. And outside of that, at Washington, I had the privilege to help coach the freshman boys basketball team. So that also put me in a position to, lead young kids that are, and help them develop the skills that they need to succeed on the court, which is very fun. And so those are, just to name a few, those are some of the things that I've been involved in that have really helped me step out of my comfort zone and give me the responsibility of a leader.
Love to hear it. I think it's cool that, those different experiences kind of really help mold you and shape you and let you know, again, what it is, how I want to be or how I definitely don't want to be based on a certain experience. So I love to hear about all the different experiences. And for most of you, I didn't even know that. Like Martae, I had no idea about some of the organizations that you mentioned. And then Maya, I know you mentioned your first job out of college, and that mine was definitely the same for me. It was a huge eye opener to the real world that has bestowed upon me. So, to say the least. And then Alex and Chris touched on this a little bit, and that's about the Leadership Council. I know a few of you have seen, different stuff that has went out about the Leadership Council, but originally the council was created for the purpose of getting alumni reconnected. So they realized, dang, we graduating all these folks and we don't know what they're doing out in the world. How can we reconnect with them and, make them see something different about Kauffman than the same old thing that they've seen? So the Alumni Association was created. And then so Lisa, who's the director of alumni relations, she said, well, why are we like doing the work? We're not alumni. So she took the charge of getting some alumni together and say, hey, do you want to lead this? Do you want to like help us figure out how to connect alumni? And they did. And so that's how the council was created. But that was the first intention of it. And then over time, it's morphed into something, I think, bigger and better. And now it's morphed into truly a leadership opportunity for people to level up their skill set. And I think that for the most part, that's what it's been able to do. And I know we have myself and then we have the panelists, but we also have somebody who's like watching on the call. Erin, she used to be on the council as well. So shout out to her. And so if you want to drop some of your experiences and stuff in the chat, please do, because she was part of like the early on crew. But I just wanted to share with you all, give you all the opportunity to learn more about what the council is. And if you think this is something that you want to be a part of, reach out to me and we can talk more about it. But I just wanted to go a little bit more in depth about what it is. So I'm going to share just a quick blurb about what the council aims to do. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up and do some Q&A. So the council is planning service and fellowship events for KSI alumni. And you've all have seen this in the past, pre-COVID, of what fellowship or service events look like. But in the past, we've done things like Hope Builders, or we have done the annual Alumni Summer Happy Hour where folks come out. And I know a few of you are new grads, so maybe you haven't been able to attend those type of events. But pre-COVID, that's the type of things that we would do. And then as far as service, I mentioned we partner with like different local nonprofit organizations to be able to connect alumni with actual service in the local community. So that's the whole goal of the council, in addition to being able to give each person some type of leadership or professional development opportunities. And I just want to show you a couple of pictures of some events that have happened, again, pre-COVID, and we're hoping to get back to this next year. But this is the annual Alumni Summer Happy Hour, and this typically happens after we introduce the next cohort of scholars to alumni status. They come, have drinks, it's a DJ, it's a good time. They can invite a +1. It's just a real good time. And I think definitely different than the usual narrative that you probably have experienced being a Kauffman Scholar. And then here is another event that we put on, and you can see like Alex is in the picture there. I think Erin may even be in this picture. She is, and Maya. But this is an event that we put on to honor our council members. And then we had a little activity set up there where where folks could put together some takeaway activity kits for Children's Mercy. So when the kiddos are, at the hospital and need something to do while they wait, while they're sick, they got something fun to do. So they helped put that together. So y'all do look lost, but it's all good though. It's all up. So those are just a couple events that they do. And again, each council member, each person who talked tonight was on the council or is currently on the council. So they've been a part of making those type of things happen. And I feel like you can hear from the insight that they dropped tonight that they're valuable folks and they know a little bit of something. But here are some events that we have coming up that if you want to stay connected as an alumni, just, do more stuff with KSI. This is cool. We have the community cleanup that's happening this Saturday. We're going to be cleaning up around the area of Brush Creek Community Center from 9 to 10 a.m. I'll send y'all out the link if you want to sign up for that. It's just an hour. We're going to provide all the supplies and breakfast that you need to come out, help be a part of making the community good. And then we'll do a meetup so that you can officially meet some folks in person. Like some council members in person. We're going to have that on October 7th. We're going to feed you at Sauce and Crossroads, which is a Black-owned little restaurant. And I went to school with the guy who co-owned this. It's amazing that he's doing this. But yeah, so we're going to meet up there, and we'll have a link for you to sign up if that's something you want to do. And then we'll have an open forum. So if you want to see what it looks like for council members to actually get together, plan these events, and have a meeting, we'll have that on October 9th. Those are just a couple of things that's happening in the future. If you want to know more, if tonight piqued your interest. But that's really all we have. And now we're going to open the floor to any extra questions, anyone, or feedback, comments anyone wants to share. Please do. I'll leave it open. And I just wanted to highlight that you said the council was great. She served for 2 years. And she said, give it some thought if you're interested. I would agree. I served with Erin before I got a job here. I was on the council and I served with Erin. Any questions? Okay. Yeah, good question, Jayla. You asked, what's the time commitment look like for the council? So it's a monthly meeting that happens and starts in January and ends in November. So it's a monthly meeting. They meet for about 2 hours. We feed you. At some meetings, we do professional development, which means we bring in somebody to speak to a certain topic. And the meeting may last 3 hours, but it's usually no more than 3 hours of your time on a Saturday. The next step for if you want to join or learn more about the council, I'll send it in an email. Is we do have an application process, just like for formality purposes. And I think that's just how it is as you matriculate in life. You'll realize there's an application for dang near everything, but that's just a formality. And it's for us to kind of gauge more about you. Like, what do you feel like you have when we talk about that self-awareness as leaders? Like, what do you feel like you possess as a leader, can bring to the table? And also, what can you work on that we can help you? So that's really what the application is all about, capturing that information. And I can send that in an email so you can have that. And then after that, I'll be the one that talks to you after your application. We'll chat for a little bit, and then we'll send out, information about when when our first meeting is. So that's kind of the next steps, but I'll go over that more in an email. That's a good question though. Erin says everybody did a great job. I think so too. Y'all did amazing. So anybody else have any more questions? No? Okay. Well, this is my formal appreciation. And if I could sing to you all, I would. This was beyond my thoughts and expectations. I appreciate much love to each of you for taking time to share your gems with us tonight. And I was able to capture a lot of the stuff that was in the chat. So when I follow up an email, I'll link everything, especially the books, the color test, and all of that. So sincerely thank you, Martae. Sincerely thank you, Maya. Sincerely thank you, Chris. Sincerely thank you, Alex. Again, for sharing your time with us. That means more than everything in the world. So I really, really appreciate it. And as they mentioned, you can connect with them offline. So I'll give you all like their email, the best email to connect with them. If you just want to follow up with them, get to know them a little bit more. So thank y'all. We are done with the panel discussion for tonight. And I hope y'all have a wonderful evening. Yes, Alex dropped. She said you can find her on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Autumn. And thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you guys.